Greetings! So recently Peppy asked the question whether we want passive health drain or not. While I already posted a short comment in the thread, I want to elaborate on the topic and go into the HP system itself in more detail. Before we start, I want to state that no matter what your stance is on HP, it is correct for you. Whether you enjoy the game with how the HP system currently works, or you want to remove it altogether, there is no right and wrong answer. The problem is that there needs to be a uniform system, else it would create an inconsistency problem. Let's start with the initial question by Peppy. Do we want it? Well, the responses seem to be mixed, but the passive drain affects mainly the players who can play stuff like this. Which is not a whole lot of players. So, what is passive drain, you might ask? I'm not gonna tell you. Yeah, you heard me right. I'm not gonna tell you. Video is over. Bye. Nah, just kidding. But since Pishifet already explained it much better than I ever could, go check his video out on this wonderful feature. I will leave a link in the description. Now let's see what Peppy listed as pros and cons of HP drain. The first two refers to the pride and accomplishment players feel for clearing a map. We all have that one friend who only goes for high difficulty passes, and without HP their enjoyment of the game would be seriously impeded. Or maybe you are that guy. I don't know. But these 2 points are entirely valid, since if a sizable portion of the community enjoys passing hard maps, then it has place in the game in one way or another. Although these aren't really specifically points for keeping passive health drain at its current state. These are just pros for the HP system itself. However, the third one is specifically for the HP drain, although I find it a bit strange. Seems like that was the strongest point for some other people though, so... The HP system is dynamic even without drain. If you hit a note, your HP will go up, and when you miss, your HP decreases. It should be pretty simple like that, right?
Wrong.
Yeah, drain makes it even more dynamic, but for what purpose? It is unfairly punishing since you cannot really prevent drain from happening. And the rate is pretty arbitrary too. Yeah, there are some logic behind the rate of the drain, but it doesn't make any sense from a player perspective. The constant rate of drain means that even if you perfectly execute slow sections of the map, you still lose HP. That is basically the definition of unfair game design. But this doesn't affect most players, so they might not even know about the issue.
But Verito, if barely anyone is affected by this, then why change? You have so many problems, oh my god.
Well, it affects one of the most dedicated part of the player base, so it is kind of important. And besides, if something is broken and there is a relatively easy to implement fix to that, then I don't see the reason why should we keep it broken as it is now. There are various ways to fix the drain while keeping the dynamic element of it. First of all, spinners and sliders shouldn't drain HP if they are being executed properly. Yes, even 300 RPM should be considered proper, although I still think spinners are stupid and need a rework, so they aren't just some RSI-inducing object for rank 1 farmers. I already talked about that, so go check my Scorvy2 video out. I will leave a link in the description with a timestamp. With spinners and sliders not draining while being properly executed, players won't be punished for the quirks of the system while they are doing the exact thing they are supposed to do. This is pretty much the biggest issue with the drain anyway. But there are some maps that don't really have spinners and you still fail with decent accuracy. Maybe you dropped a few slider ends and that was enough for the drain to catch up on you. Or maybe it's just the slow part that's overly punishing for no apparent reason, other than the system being like that. Like, you have to accept it and move on. There is a fix to that too, without completely abandoning the drain feature. The rate of drain should not be constant. Slower parts should drain less compared to intense section of the map. On really slow parts, where you have to press a note every 2 seconds, the drain should be almost non-existent. That way, the drain will become even more dynamic as it is now, since the rate of the drain becomes another aspect to look out for. Most players wouldn't even notice the changes because they don't even play maps where this is an issue. I think these 2 changes would be the most conservative that I can think of. Drain would still exist, but it would be much fairer than it is now. Now, let's see some other possible changes. If you manage to miss sliders, they drain much more health points than single notes. But they also restore much more, so they should be fair, right?
Wrong.
Not all sliders were created equal. Some sliders are short, some sliders are on drugs, and some are close to other sliders, and some are all of these together. The problem starts when at least one of these attributes are true. Short sliders, for example, are pretty broken. I have already talked about it in a previous video, but in a nutshell, the hit window can be smaller than the actual hit object with mini sliders, so they need to be hit earlier or very accurately. These notes basically play the same as normal notes with the exception that they are broken. Missing a few of these can completely empty the health bar on an otherwise decent play. They are clearly broken, so that is frustrating in and of itself, but you will also fail the map right there, at which point you just probably throw away your stylus so far that not even the bestest of the boys can bring it back. Bus sliders have pretty much the same issue, except amplified by the fact that if you miss one, you can say goodbye to your pass. It is a pretty harsh punishment for not being able to click on a single object. I have actually failed maps on several tournaments due to these elements.
So terribly bad for Verto if that does manage to trip him up to the point of failing. Does he have enough HP to make it through? Slow slider. Another slow slider. Is that enough? Oh my lord, he will fail out right at the end of that slider. Oh my god. Verto
actually failed.
Failed at the end.
It's pretty sad. I think each object should drain similar amount of health. That would fix the HP part of the problem. I also made some proposals to the sliders in another video. In the description, as always. So, what else is there to do? We discussed how the current HP system could be improved, but we haven't talked about alternatives yet. Obviously, one of them would be just removing HP altogether, but I guess that's not happening anytime soon. So what about a battery system like in Taiko? Every time you hit a note, you fill up your battery, and every time you miss, you lose charges. There is no drain, so you don't have to worry about that. You pass the map if the battery has reached a certain amount of charge at the end of the map. If you are below that threshold,
You fail.
it's pretty straightforward, although it has its own quirks. You could basically do nothing for the first half of the map and still get a pass. But longer maps are usually more punishing with this kind of system. With the current HP system you can miss a lot of stuff as long as the misses are spread out throughout the map. With Taiko's HP system you cannot do that, since missing too often will deplete your health quite fast. At least you can start over or finish the map without passing. It is a much better system for players who don't retry much and just want to play the gosh damn map. God dang it. I just want to play the map. Why do you gotta be like that? Why do you gotta be like that with these fellas? Come on man, why do you do that? Peppy, please. Both Taiko's and Standard's HP system have their own difficulties, so being able to choose between them without any punishment would be ideal. I am sure that there are many other types of HP systems that could work with Oath, but Taiko's battery system is something some of us are already familiar with. And it's already in the game, so it wouldn't be that hard to translate into standard, is it?
Well, my HP system would be like alternating drains health.
Yes, I know your ideas are very good and special like you, Timothy. And you have to share them, but please, go now. Please, just go. Just go watch some stupid memes or something. Dumbass kid. Some of you might say stuff like, losing health to HP means you are already doing very badly anyway. Which makes sense if you don't play maps where the drain is actually causing problems. As I mentioned it in the beginning of the video, it is something only a fraction of the community has to deal with. Although, this part of the player base is also one of the most dedicated ones, so yeah. Personally, I skinned out my health part because it only distracts me from the game, so it's very annoying. I am not going to suddenly perform better after seeing my health dropping. Even by diverting my attention, I am concentrating less on the notes. Who the hell cares about me? What about you guys? Do you play with the health bar on? Do you even care about the issue? Let me know down in the comments. I'm sure you'll do.